Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Skokie Planning Commission meeting for February 21st. First order of business tonight is to approve the minutes of the last meeting. We have a motion by Scott Berman. Do we have a second? Second by Jeff Berman. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the minutes have been approved. Okay. We have one case tonight. Case number is 2019-01P. Site plan approval for 4,000 and 4,012 Church Street and 9220 Crawford Avenue. And is the petitioner ready? We have a petitioner here tonight? Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Could you give us your name for the record, please, and
Sure.
address?
I'm Rafi Arzumanian, I'm the architect for the project.
Okay. Rafi, would you raise your hand? Do you affirm that testimony you give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you?
I do.
Yes. And Counselor, is the notice in order?
Notice is proper and correct.
Thank you. Okay, why don't you just give us a brief overview of your petition
Sure.
here?
We were in front of you, I think, about almost a year and a half ago or so, with a slightly different building. It was a 24-unit building, had an underground lower-level garage for parking, and it went pretty much from the property line on the west to Crawford, had a setback in the front, and then it went to the alley. After working on it for a while and the clients looking at the marketing of the project, decision was, and the cost of the project, decision was made to downscale the number of the units, so the number of units were reduced. The basement parking was eliminated, so we were able to accommodate all the required parking on the ground floor and outside. As an outcome of that, the building grew smaller, so we have about 38 feet or 40 feet away now from our neighbor to the west. So the building is pulled back quite a bit, and it's pushed forward along Church Street, and the plaza, the outdoor plaza, is moved to the southwest corner of the site. Really nothing else beyond that has really changed much. We were in front of a Appearance Commission last week, and they had a few comments, a few improvements to the design, which we have agreed to incorporate into the design, and that's it.
Okay. In your earlier project, did you have a retail space?
Yes, we did.
Is the retail space, the square footage changed?
It is a little bit less, but still it's 25% of the footprint of the building on the ground.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions of the petitioner? Anyone? Okay. All right, thank you. We'll call you up later.
Sure. Thank you.
Now we'll have the staff, Steve Marciani, read, or give us this report, staff report.
Chairman, I would like to request that the report be submitted to the record as presented, and I would like to give us the right to correct any grammar or spelling errors that might have been in the report.
So granted.
And also to correct the address on the condition number 9. I actually think this is the way it was adopted in the prior ordinance. It should be 9222 Crawford, not Church.
I might have said, okay, you're right, okay. Yes.
Yeah, so the the building is a little bit smaller. There's more space between the property, between this building and the property to the west. There is a cantilever on the west and the north sides of the building. So that, or not the north. It is just the west side, right over here. So the building does hang out to here on the second floor, but there's still about 20 feet between the building and the building next door now. It was closer the last time. Other than that, yeah, so the overall dimensions of the building has shrunk a little bit. It's all surface parking or at-grade parking. The 7 parking spaces that are necessary for the synagogue for the prior site plan approval are present here and accessible. All the guest spaces are accessible. The only stuff in the garage will be the private ones for the residents. And the retail spaces are accessible from the back.
Okay. Will the landscaping change much?
So the reason why I paused is because they didn't actually identify the plants. So one of the conditions is that they will need to provide us a detailed landscaping
Yeah, I
plan.
didn't see a landscaping,
No, the street trees, so whatever they were supposed to be providing for the street trees will be put in. The curb cuts are being removed on Church, so that will become Parkway, so that's good. The landscaping area is is pretty small. It will be the landscaping screening in the rear of the building, at the end of the alley, with nothing in the site triangle. And then the courtyard area, the plaza area, which is on the west side.
any questions? Sis?
Couple of questions. Describe for us again, for those of us that might have forgotten or are new to the commission, the complicated parking arrangement with the synagogue next door. I remember that was somehow integrated into this parking plan.
Right, so this, so the site plan approval actually includes both parcels. There's a couple reasons for that. One is that the synagogue needed at least an acre to be allowed in the residential district, which it now has with this parcel conjoined. And some of the required parking spaces for events and other non-Shabbos or high holiday services are on the other property. They are currently on that property now, which looks like this. And so 7 spaces are required to be on the southern parcel, and those 7 spaces will be here, and they will be signed as such as a condition of the approval.
Dedicated as assigned permanently 24/7 to the synagogue, even though they're only used occasionally?
Those are their spaces, yes. It's part of their parking requirement for the synagogue. So the spaces that are there are those 7 spaces. We set them aside. After that, there's enough parking for the retail or the office use that goes in there, the commercial use, up to a certain amount. If there's anything that's higher than that, because this is an X zone, they would pay into the parking fund, but, we get there. There's at least enough for a 1 per 300 use, which is most office and retail uses. And then there's also the guest spaces that are required for the residential. They are also outside of the parking garage. So the interior spaces are just for the residents that live there.
Okay, and the original plan that, where the commercial space was a little larger, wasn't there access to the park, and there was assigned commercial parking spaces under the building or at
Right, and
grade
those
level?
will be at the back.
So those parking spaces for the commercial spaces, was accessible only off the alley in the previous plan, or was it also accessible off of a Church Street driveway?
There were no church, there's no Church Street driveway.
There was never a Church Street driveway.
It was all alley access, yes. That street is an IDOT street, actually, and I don't know what the history behind that is. They've just changed their policy, we heard, that they will no longer be approving any additional on-street parking on any IDOT road. Now, I don't know where that came from, but that's a recent change that happened all of a sudden. So we're trying to work through that, because IDOT has a lot of streets and downtowns all over the place. I mean, most roads that go through most towns in Illinois, through their cores are state highways. But anyway, so the initial thought was that there's possibly some way to do parking adjustments on that street, but that's not going to be the case now.
So the parking for the commercial space is the spaces that are accessible off the alley,
Right here.
behind the building, and it's presumed that customers or patrons of that commercial space will pull in the alley, park there, and then walk around the front of the building to get to the commercial space.
Yeah, I mean, again, I remind everyone that most of the time when you park at Jewel, you're walking farther than that to get to the door. So it's not really that far, especially once the behavior is learned.
So which are the assigned commercial spaces and which are the assigned synagogue spaces?
All right, so that.
I guess, and show us which are the resident spaces and which are the guest spaces.
All right, so the ones that are on your plans that are marked RTL, which are from here to here. And then the synagogue spaces are here, down to here, and then the 3 guest spaces are here.
Again, the guest has to pull in, drive all the way down to the dead end at the end of the parking lot, but then walk over to the lobby, which is close.
Yeah, there's an accessibility, I don't think, to get from here to here. There is? Okay. It shows a solid wall, that's why I was just,
The wall is a landscape screen,
okay,
passage through that.
okay. We should probably show
It's,
that.
the driving is not likely, but the walking is very nice.
Yeah.
The driving is a long shot.
Well, again, if you're a guest coming to someone's house, they're going to tell you where to park. So that is, from my perspective, that needs to be the least obvious, I guess. Whereas the commercial needs to be the most convenient.
Okay.
I'm just curious, this is the conversation about the walk to retail count. Is there any anticipation as to what type of retail establishment would be attracted to the space?
At this moment, not yet.
So for the microphone, at this moment, not yet. They're not required to have retail here. It just has to be a commercial use, and it has to be a taxable use. That's the other thing. Okay, hold on a
You get an
second.
opportunity to speak.
Yep.
Yes. Okay, any other questions of staff?
One more question.
Yes.
Will the retail space be owned by the condo building, or will it be a separate PIN and therefore owned separately from the correct rest of the building?
You're saying a non-condo pin?
No, it'll be a PIN, but will that PIN be owned and controlled by the association, or be separately bought and sold
That's a
as an
question.
outside market item?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, we'll talk to the
I'll
petitioner.
listen, okay.
Okay, okay.
The reason for my statement is, it is sometimes problematic when we have a commercial space at the ground floor, and we assign that commercial space and that PIN to the entire association, which then is stuck with the unleasable space, winding up putting a financial strain on the building. So we'll find that out in a moment.
Okay.
And we do have to avoid the problem that other condominiums have about restricting the users in there, we now put a standard condition that you cannot restrict the use any more restrictive than the zoning would allow for that district. So we have some problems with leases, is that the condominium association has rules about which uses, which may or may not be permitted, they will allow in there, which we are not allowing from this point forward on our all new projects.
Okay, very good. Any other questions? Thank you, Steve. At this point, I'll open the floor to anyone in the audience who has a question. Sir, did you want to come up and ask a question? Please. Give us your name and your address, please.
My
Right in
name
the
is
microphone, please. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Song Ko. I just live in 9205 Keystone, just right next of this building. And they say commercials. How many commercials?
It's only one space,
Pardon?
one space,
Only one space in first floor?
yes.
Okay. It wasn't my question.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else who have a question or comment, please come up. There's a sign-up sheet there. If anybody wishes, well, we'll have a sign-up sheet for anybody who wishes a copy of this report. And this case still has to go before the Board of Trustees for final approval. And if you give us your name and address, if you want to be notified when that meeting will be, we will notify you. Yes, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
It's okay. Janice Handelman, I live at 3949 Lion Street. That's the corner Lyons and Crawford. First of all, I never knew anything about this building. I never got a letter. I think I came to your office and talked to you about that. I knew nothing about this. But my question is that the buildings to the south across the street and to the west are all two-story. So why was a four-story building approved and not maybe another two or three? Because I
believe-
have to look out my windows at this big, huge building.
Yeah, I think that's the allowable height in that zone.
Just wondering. I mean, and is there any chance that IDOT will let parking be allowed on that strip on
It's,
Crawford?
we can't speak for IDOT.
Can't
We
speak
don't
for
know.
that. Because I just don't want more overflow parking in front of my house.
I understand that, yeah, sure, but again, it's up to IDOT, and as Steve Marciani mentioned, that IDOT is not approving any off-street parking under public right-of-ways.
Well,
Okay,
I
so
believe you indicated that IDOT would not allow it on Church Street.
Church, yeah, okay.
Crawford is actually a county road,
Okay,
so, but
I'm sorry, I forgot.
no.
If you want to speak, you may come up. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
Yeah, just as a point of clarification, there is currently not parking in there because of the left-hand turn lane. There's not enough space at that location for that. But, you know,
On Church
as
Street.
things change over time. I know they're going to be putting bike lanes on that road also, so that's coming soon too.
Okay.
On
Thank
Church,
you.
yes.
Is there anyone else in the audience? Please come up.
So, my name is Cindy Kay. I live in 9205 Keystone, which is the adjacent building next to where they're building. So, my biggest concern is not that they're building this building or building it too close to my property. It's the way they're doing demo. I have two young children. One is a little under one, and then one is a toddler. With their demo, they're doing construction, and they're doing especially in this kind of weather when we had a polar vortex, the grounds are all stuck and it's all hard. And when they're banging on this, like, my whole building is shaking. My children are freaked out. I called the village in regards to this situation. I was like, is there anything that we could kind of prevent this from doing it right now? And what the answer I got was like, well, this is not our problem. If you have an issue.
Who gave you the answer?
I spoke to a gentleman named George in the planning department, and he told me if you have an issue, it's a civil matter and you could get a lawyer to sue them. So I'm kind of upset about that because we're the citizens in this village. There should be some kind of protection for us, especially when we have young children. And instead of giving me an answer or a source, this is the answer he gave me. Get a lawyer, and it's a civil suit.
Can-
So how am I supposed to feel about that?
Pete, can you answer that? Peter's our director of
Okay.
development.
Well, it does sound heartless, but it's true that we really have no authority to stop them from building or demolishing a building in the
Once they get a
wintertime.
permit.
They've got a permit, they got a county permit, so there was really not much we could do about that. When construction does start, this will probably not start until spring, from, I could tell. It has to go through the building permit process and everything. So all the construction will occur, primarily the foundations and everything will be going through the summer months into fall. So I don't think you'll have the same issues. But,
Well, but I'm not really concerned about then because I'm concerned about now with my young children.
well, right now, there won't be any further construction or demolition. It's, the
So
building
you're
is
basically
down.
telling me it's stopped right now?
Yes,
Okay. So, and when will it pick up until spring?
yes.
Okay. So once spring pops up, and then so I would have to deal with it when the noise and everything comes back again.
Well,
so-
unfortunately, that's one of the problems living next to a construction site.
Okay.
One of the things you may want is that you'd have the developer come over and inspect your building with you, just, for cracks or other things. so
Well,
that
there's
you
already
can
cracks because
document.
I've already taken pictures. My building is already cracking. Bricks has already fallen, and I've documented that, and I've taken pictures already. So it's
Have you
not
talked with the developer?
talk to the developer who's building it.
Yes.
Okay, and
We should have a conversation with him,
okay,
with them.
But we will work with them, so if you have a problem,
yeah.
you call, you can call me directly.
Okay, and then do you have a direct line that I could?
It's,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, because my main concern is my children.
Sure.
definitely.
I'm sure everybody who have children understands that.
To clarify, before the person steps down, right now, the answer that she was given that there was nothing they could do was because of the county demolition permit. But once the village gives a permit for building, then the village has entire control of the site. Is that correct?
Yes, but the building has already been demolished.
True.
It's gone.
That's
So-
the demolition issue. But now, in terms of construction in the future, if there are problems, she will no longer have that same answer of, there is nothing we can do, we are not in control. We were not in control previously, but now, as of the building permit, we will be in control. Is that correct?
Yes, but again, within reason, there's always noise, there's always vibration, you know, within a reason, and within working hours that the village has established, and, you know, that they're not
I've actually
outside.
had to call the police department twice in regards to doing demo past the time.
Oh, I would immediately. I was
Yeah,
going to tell you.
yeah.
You
I've
should.
done that twice, just on record, you know.
You should.
Yes, because it's past my children's bedtime.
But I want to
and,
make
you know,
sure, though, one more time, that from now on,
Mm-hmm.
it is now a village matter, and she can call the village to complain. Whether we can do anything about it, we will not send her away and say, it is not our problem, go sue someone.
Yes,
It is our building permit that we are taking charge of from this point forth. Is that correct?
that's correct. The construction staging, construction time periods, those are all under a building permit.
Even though they weren't in the past because it was demolition.
Well, they have to
Well-
submit.
No, I want to hear the.
I'm sorry.
It should have been, however, you know, we can't watch them 24 hours a day, and so it was good that you called the police, that's what is required. And then what happens is we get a condition report from the police department, and the building division then enforces whatever they can on it. So,
Yeah, during construction, they have to give the village a plan of where they're gonna stage, you know, material, when the truck routes and things like that, so we do have control over that.
So complainants in the future on this project will call the building department and the police, and they are not sent off to deal with the developer independently. Is that correct?
no.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Yes, I'm the same guy, 9205 Keystone, right next over this building. Yes, right. Okay, I just owned that building, then my building is damaging because of demolition. So I don't know how, whenever we just complaining, the city doesn't, just work fairly, just like you say so. I mean, whose side you are? You guys are supposed to protect for the village people. We paying the tax.
I
Okay?
understand.
So then, you are trying to just like this. They saying just like reducing for the size of the building. Maybe some of the honest officemen, maybe in the village. I'm thanks to that this gentleman. Whenever they just reducing the size, but they don't reduce for the height, right?
We're going to ask questions about.
Okay. The thing is, just like that, you guys may be changing for the unit, 24 unit to 15 unit. It's about 40% reduce. Maybe it's kind of mathematical ways. You guys are reducing just for the reducing one bedroom, then keep the trying to make 3 bedrooms. So that's why you have to keep the same size of the height of the building. It's not happy watching the movie in the big guys. This building is covering my, morning sunbright coffee time. I'm not happy.
okay,
Not even that, for damaging for the my building, and even the city, whenever they just you guys apply, give them a permit, but you have to taking care of them. Do they right way? They using for huge wrecking, steel wrecking ball. They even everything is freezed, just like a concrete. Then they don't care. Boom, boom. My damage is cracking. You don't care. You guys are very lucky. You doesn't live just next over this building. please beware. Thank you.
Go. Commissioner. Microphone, please.
It seems like there's at least two structures that have potentially some damage, so, and we talked about the developer touring and seeing what the damage is. How do we make sure that gets facilitated so that they can get it taken care of?
Well, certainly, they need to talk to the developer, should talk to the architect, who is right behind you. We know him very well, so, I mean, we'll follow through on that.
Okay.
But it really is a civil matter after, if they complied with the ordinances, then it's kind of hard for us to go any further with that. And the question of, is it caused by the construction or was it not? Those are not for us to determine.
Okay.
Okay, is there anyone else in the audience, please? Come up to,
The question was, who is the developer?
okay.
And you will publicly
Well,
give
Yeah.
the contact.
the developer's representative is right there, so you can contact Mr. Arzumanian, and the representative from the synagogue is there also. Or, where's this, I'm sorry, are you from the synagogue or you're the developer? From the synagogue, yeah, so Mr. Arzumanian is representing the developer. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Any comments? Okay,
I have two questions,
yes, for whom?
Steve.
Okay,
Number one, just to clarify, the zoning for this site, even though it always was a one-story building, always allowed a four-story building. We didn't change the zoning.
We did change the zoning.
Oh, we did.
At the time, they to do a mixed use, and the mixed use, there's already mixed use all over the street. So the existing buildings are actually non-conforming buildings, so the people that live in the mixed-use buildings are not, they're legal non-conforming, so they do not follow the zoning ordinance. The zoning change that we made allowed for the residentials upstairs on this site, although the other sites have not changed their zoning yet. At the time, the height was for 3 stories. They asked for 4 stories at the time when we had the hearings about that. Since then, they are allowed 45 feet, which is 4 stories by right. So the height is off the table as far as discussion. They meet their bulk requirements with the bonuses that they're getting, and actually they didn't really even need that much. The footprint being smaller actually allows more light and air to more people. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, that there's more spacing in this case between the adjacent building. Crawford is very wide, so that would be the setting sun, not the morning sun. But, the adjacent building next door is already 2 stories. If we're talking about houses beyond that, we're getting pretty far away from the shadow lines. But as far as the bulk goes, there's no relief or anything needed. And this is not a special use permit, it is a site plan approval. So we're not questioning whether or not the project should be here. It's just we have to make sure that the site conforms to all the rules, and anything that could be affecting the neighbors because of the site planning itself. So they are entitled to 45 feet, and they are entitled to a certain amount of FAR, which they are actually below, so.
And then one other question, because parking was so much a part of the last discussion. I don't know if we had in the last condition, but we do now, that the village will watch traffic pattern.
It was
and if
the last time, yeah.
And if it is determined that something is happening, then we will put up a no entry sign.
It's got to do with the alley.
Yes.
We don't suspect that there's going to be any issue, but if it turns out that there are problems, then we have the right to do something about it. That's what that condition was.
And that right would be that we would put up a no entry from Crawford. So no traffic could turn in from either direction, north or south on Crawford, or just,
Yeah, I don't have the condition in front of me. It's.
I'll read it.
I'm sorry.
It confused me as to what we are watching for in the future. and
I
what
think it has to,
I'll tell you in a second.
sorry, let me grab my report.
I just don't remember that we ever had that we ever voted that way in the past. That we will vote one way, but we will be concerned about it, so we'll watch it, and then maybe we'll reconsider later.
That, we've done that in the past.
Okay, all right.
Where we study something. We have, actually, the school, East Prairie School has that same kind of condition, that we're going to look at the condition of the alleys that are north of the school building, so there's another example of that. This condition was in the prior ordinance also.
Condition number 5.
Condition 5, right. After 1 year, if there are reported accidents or queuing delays at the intersection, the petitioner may be required to install do not enter signs at the alley at the Crawford entrance to prevent motorists from turning northbound.
From north, they meant northbound Crawford, right? So
Right.
a northbound motorist can't turn left across traffic. But it's
Correct.
not that we are preventing access to this,
No.
thereby forcing all traffic through the side street.
This is if it turns out to be an accident problem, we're putting them on notice that we might control it.
The accident is not an alley access, not an alley accident problem. The accident problem would occur on Crawford because of this,
Well, at
Crossing.
the Crawford Alley, yes.
because of northbound Crawford traffic turning across southbound Crawford traffic.
Yes, there's no median at this locate, but I don't think I think it's a raised barrier anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
And it could have been that improvement, has that always been that way? Yeah. Anyway, so there were some questions, concerns about that, so this condition was put in last time. I didn't really change anything in here, other than to take out things that no longer applied, so.
Well, the drawing shows it might just be a stripe, actually.
But I think it's raised,
Yeah. Oh, that one, yeah.
yeah. The left turn, right,
It's
exactly.
multiple, but it's there.
I think that's old.
I think this is 2012, so
Yeah. This one here. You can
yeah, it looks
see-
like this, right?
Yeah.
Miss, oh, please come up.
I was wondering, originally, I think on the site plan of the previous, didn't you guys
Well,
talk
come-
about some
please-
transit?
Please address,
Oh, it's Cindy Kay.
no, address us.
Okay, originally in the site plan, I remember that they were talking about a transit bus line that was next to it on Crawford and Keystone. On Church, right? On Church and Keystone. So would that cause a lot of traffic?
No.
Okay.
There's a bus.
There's a bus line right in front of it, I believe that there
On
is.
Crawford.
Yeah.
Yeah, they tried to eliminate them all up and down.
Okay. All right. Steve, okay. Rafi, would you please come back up? So you've heard the comments and questions. Do you have
Yes.
anything to offer to these people, or do you want to say anything?
Sure. As far as the PIN number for the retail, that's not going to be part of the condo association, so that's a separate number. Demolition, honestly, I don't know what to say. I don't have any control on it, and I'll be happy to pass that on to the developer, make sure that they don't do that. I am aware the developer has made several attempts, according to him, to contact his neighbors, to have a discussion with them, but he has not, they have not responded to him. So I will be happy to reach out to both sides and, if need be, to do a walkthrough with both of them and document whatever we find, so that there is a clear understanding at this point before we move forward where things stand. And I'm sure my clients will be open to it, and I will discuss that with him.
Yeah, I'm glad you offered to do that, and please just make yourself available to Rafi at the end of the meeting. Give me your contact information.
Yeah, I'll give you my business cards, and you guys can give your information. I'll be more than happy to accommodate everybody.
All right. Commissioners, do you have any further questions of the petitioner at this point? Thank you. Okay. At this point, we're ready for a motion on case 2019-01P. Commissioner Berman,
I'll make the motion that we accept the report as presented
and to approve.
and to approve.
Do I have a second?
Just to clarify, we are, as presented means we are approving the amended proposal.
Yes.
The amended proposal.
Yes.
As it is amended tonight,
Yes.
which changes what was approved a year and a half ago.
Correct.
I will second that.
Thank you. Call for the vote. Commissioner Mitchell is absent. Commissioner Quinn.
Aye.
Commissioner Scott Berman.
Aye.
Commissioner Villegas.
Aye.
Commissioner Franklin.
Aye.
Commissioner Lex Patti is absent. Commissioner Jeff Berman.
Aye.
Commissioner Matei is absent, and I'll vote aye. Again, we are not the final defining board here. This case still has to go before the Board of Trustees for final approval. So again, if you've given me your name and address, we will notify you when this case will go before the board. Thank you for coming tonight, and drive home very carefully. This meeting's adjourned.